The hallway of Jefferson Ridge High School in Cleveland went silent the moment Marcus Hale grabbed Naomi Carter by the collar of her hoodie and slammed her against the row of dented blue lockers. Her books crashed to the floor, papers scattering across the hallway like frightened birds, while dozens of students froze in place, pretending not to watch. Naomi's dark curls fell across her face, her breathing uneven, her hands trembling at her sides. For months, people had seen her walk those halls with her head down while whispers followed behind her like shadows. But on that cold November afternoon, something happened that nobody expected. Something that would leave the entire school speechless for years. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still matters in this world and that people deserve second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us how powerful courage can really be. Naomi was 16 years old, quiet, brilliant, and invisible in all the ways that hurt the most. She lived with her grandmother Lorraine in a small apartment on the east side of the city after losing her mother to illness 3 years earlier. Every morning before school, she worked 2 hours at a local bakery sweeping floors and boxing pastries just to help pay rent. By the time she arrived at school, exhausted and smelling faintly of cinnamon and flour, the jokes had already started. Kids mocked her thrift store clothes, her worn-out sneakers, and the way she always sat alone during lunch. But Marcus and his group took things further than anyone else. They turned humiliation into entertainment. It started with small things. They hid her backpack during gym class. They poured milk over her cafeteria tray. Someone once recorded her reading aloud in English class and posted it online with cruel captions that spread through the school overnight. Teachers noticed but rarely stepped in. Most students looked away because they were afraid of becoming the next target. Naomi learned to survive by staying silent. But silence has a breaking point. That afternoon, Naomi was carrying a model bridge she had spent 3 weeks building for the state engineering competition. It was made from tiny wooden beams and careful calculations, a project she hoped could win a scholarship someday. As she walked through the crowded hallway, Marcus deliberately shoulder-checked her, sending the bridge crashing to the floor. The structure shattered instantly. The hallway erupted with laughter. Naomi dropped to her knees, desperately trying to gather the broken pieces, but Marcus kicked part of the bridge away and grabbed her collar before she could stand. His face twisted with cruel amusement while his friends recorded everything on their phones. Students nearby stared in silence, waiting for Naomi to cry the way she always did. Instead, Naomi slowly stood up. Her eyes were filled with tears, but there was something else in them too. Exhaustion. Pain. And a quiet kind of strength nobody had noticed before. Without saying a word, she reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded envelope. Her hands shook as she opened it. Then she held it high enough for everyone around to see the logo at the top. It was an acceptance letter from one of the most prestigious science academies in the country, a private institution in Boston that offered full scholarships to only 5 students nationwide each year. Naomi had been selected out of thousands. The laughter stopped instantly. Marcus released her collar as confusion spread across the hallway. Naomi explained through trembling breaths that the broken bridge was supposed to be her final project submission, but the academy had already reviewed her earlier work months ago in secret after her physics teacher submitted it without telling her. Every sleepless night, every insult, every moment she spent studying while others mocked her had led to that letter. Then came the moment nobody could have predicted. Naomi bent down, picked up the shattered pieces of her bridge, and calmly said that broken things could still hold weight if they were rebuilt correctly. Her voice cracked, but she kept speaking. She said she understood what it felt like to be treated like garbage every single day, but she refused to become bitter because of it. She looked directly at Marcus and told him she hoped one day he learned how much damage cruelty could do before it destroyed his own future too. The hallway was completely silent. Even Marcus looked shaken. For the first time, the confidence in his face disappeared. He glanced around and realized nobody was laughing anymore. Students who had stayed silent for months suddenly saw Naomi differently. Not as the quiet girl they ignored, but as someone who had survived humiliation without losing her humanity. By the next morning, the video recorded by Marcus's friends had spread across social media, but not in the way they expected. People weren't mocking Naomi. They were praising her courage. Teachers who had once overlooked her started speaking up. Students began sitting with her during lunch. One girl named Claire even helped Naomi rebuild the bridge after school, staying until nearly midnight in the engineering lab. And Marcus. He disappeared from school for several days after the incident. Rumors spread that he had been suspended, but when he eventually returned, he was quieter. Different. Some students later claimed they saw him helping freshmen carry books or sitting alone during lunch instead of mocking others. Nobody knew whether guilt truly changed him, but Naomi's words had clearly stayed with him. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. And before the story ends, comment below, "Kindness is strength," if you believe compassion can change lives. Months later, on a snowy January evening, Naomi stood on a stage in Boston wearing a navy blue academic blazer with tears shining in her eyes as she accepted an award for young innovators in engineering. In the crowd sat her grandmother Lorraine, crying quietly into a tissue while applauding harder than anyone else in the room. Naomi never forgot the hallway where people laughed while her dreams shattered across the floor. But she also never forgot the moment she chose dignity instead of revenge. Because sometimes the strongest people are not the ones who fight back with anger. Sometimes they are the ones who carry pain, survive humiliation, and still choose to rise with grace. And that was the day the girl everyone underestimated became impossible to ignore.